Hey everyone, and welcome to the Tech Impact. While the words you'll hear are entirely my own, crafted for you, the voice delivering them is generated by AI. Today marks our very first monthly episode, where we're diving deep into the critical world of cybersecurity. Our focus today is on a particularly insidious type of malware, remote access Trojans, or RATs. These are programs that give an attacker complete remote control over your computer, often without you ever realizing it. Think of it like handing over the keys to your entire digital life. With a rat on your system, an attacker can access your most private files, watch you through your webcam, record every keystroke you type, and even use your own machine to launch attacks on others, turning your device into their silent accomplice. Today, we're not just going to talk about these threats, we're going to give you a first-hand look at how they operate and attack. I'll do this safely, of course, within a secure, isolated virtual environment so you can understand their mechanics without any risk. And most importantly, I'll walk you through actionable steps you can take to protect yourself against them. The history of rats is actually quite fascinating, and it truly shows how these digital threats have evolved over time. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, seminal tools like Backorifice and NetBus emerged. These were often developed to demonstrate critical security flaws in operating systems like Windows 95 and 98, effectively highlighting how easy it was to gain control. These early rats, while simpler by today's standards, could already perform malicious actions like file browse, key logging, screen capturing, and even system shutdowns. They primarily targeted Windows systems and were often spread through email attachments or rudimentary file sharing networks. As operating systems and cybersecurity defenses became more sophisticated, rats also had to evolve. They moved from relatively simple backdoors to complex, multi-featured tools often sold or shared on underground forums, designed with advanced stealth techniques to evade detection. And crucially, while Windows remained a prime target, the threat landscape expanded. Today, we see modern rats capable of targeting not just Windows, but also Mac OS, Linux, and critically, Android mobile devices. This cross-platform capability means that truly anyone, regardless of their primary device, can be a potential target. Two prominent and highly capable examples of modern rats that we'll be discussing today are AsyncRAT and Quasar RAT. These are powerful, versatile tools commonly used in various cybercrime and even state-sponsored espionage campaigns. They can steal your credentials, monitor your every move, and give attackers comprehensive control over your infected device. AsyncRAT, for instance, is known for its effectiveness in stealing cryptocurrency wallets, its encrypted command and control communication, and its ability to establish persistence on a system through scheduled tasks or registry modifications. It's built to stay hidden and maintain long-term access. Quasar RAT, on the other hand, is an open source tool, meaning its code is publicly available. While this can enable legitimate uses like remote system administration, it unfortunately also means malicious actors can easily adapt and weaponize it. Quasar RAT boasts features like live screen capture, webcam recording, detailed file management, and even direct access to your system's registry, providing a broad spectrum of control. The good news, however, is that understanding these threats is the first step towards defending against them. And that's exactly what the rest of this episode is all about. Stick around as we break down their mechanics and, most importantly, equip you with the knowledge to safeguard your digital life. Now, we're going to get hands-on and start digging into AsyncRAT. I'm going to show you how to set it up and how it operates in a controlled environment. For a Trojan like this to work, you always need two main components, a server and a client. Think of the server as the attacker's control panel where they manage everything. The client is the malicious piece of software that gets installed on the victim's machine. Today, our server will be AsyncRAT itself, running on my PC, and we're going to build a client that will attempt to connect back to it. Now, a crucial point, I am doing this in a highly protected and isolated environment. My AsyncRAT demonstration is running inside Oracle VirtualBox, which is a virtual machine software. This creates a completely separate, contained operating system that cannot directly affect my main computer, what we call the host PC. Furthermore, for an added layer of security, my host PC, the one running VirtualBox, is actively defended by a robust antivirus solution. This is purely for demonstration purposes. In the real world, malicious actors typically use online servers, often compromised ones, to host and launch their attacks, making them harder to trace. So please remember, this is purely educational. We're breaking down how these threats work so you can better understand and protect yourself, not to replicate malicious activities. Now, let's talk about how AsyncRAT communicates. Like many applications, it relies on specific ports to send and receive data. By default, AsyncRAT commonly uses ports 6606, 7707, and 8808 for its operations. However, a key feature of AsyncRAT and many other RATs is that these default ports aren't fixed. An attacker can easily configure it to use custom ports of their choosing. This flexibility allows them to evade basic firewall rules that might be set to block common malicious port numbers, or simply to use less conspicuous ports. All right, with our AsyncRAT server running, let's move on to the client side, the malicious payload that would typically infect a target system. I'm going to show you how to build this client. We'll start by right-clicking within AsyncRAT and selecting the Builder option. Once the Builder window opens, the very first crucial step is configuring the connection settings. Here, we'll input our IP address and DNS. For this demonstration, we're using localhost, which essentially means we're pointing the client back to our own machine, acting as the server. Next, we'll specify the port number. We'll use 6606 today, which is one of AsyncRAT's default ports. In simple terms, a port is like a numbered door or channel on your computer. When applications want to send or receive information over a network, they use specific ports. It's how your computer knows which program should receive which piece of data, sort of like apartment numbers in a building, directing mail to the right resident. I strongly advise that for any testing or educational purposes you do, you only use localhost like I am. As I mentioned before, I cannot and will not show you how to illegally access another system. Real hackers, for their illicit activities, would use an online server with a public IP address to launch their attacks, which allows them to target victims anywhere on the internet. Moving on from connection settings, the next crucial option is Install. This is where we ensure the Trojan achieves persistence on a system. By creating an installer, even if the victim's PC is rebooted, the Trojan will remain active and continue its malicious operations. In advanced scenarios, this persistence can even be used to create chain attacks, where one compromised system facilitates further infections or maintains access to a network. For our demonstration client today, we're going to give the file a deceptive name, Windows Defender Updater 26.exe. This is a classic trick used by attackers. By naming the malicious process something that sounds like a legitimate system update or antivirus component, it becomes much harder for a typical user to acknowledge the presence of a Trojan when they glance at their task manager or file explorer. Additionally, we'll select the temp folder for the file to be hidden in. The temp folder is a directory on your computer, usually located at C, Users, your username, App Data, Local, Temp on Windows, or TMP on Linux/macOS. It's designed for programs to store temporary files, and critically, it's often hidden by default and rarely scrutinized by users. This makes it an ideal spot for malware to reside, as its presence can easily go unnoticed. Next up in our client builder is the MISC or miscellaneous section. This option allows us to assign our client to a specific group. This is often used by attackers to organize their infected machines, especially when managing a large number of compromised systems. For our demonstration, we'll name our client's group Windows Defender, once again playing on a legitimate-sounding name to blend in. Below that, you'll find an option for anti-analyzing. This is a critical feature for malware. When enabled, it makes the client much harder to detect by antivirus software and security analysts. Anti-analyzing techniques are essentially tricks malware uses to figure out if it's running in a safe, controlled environment, like a virtual machine or a security sandbox, where researchers might be trying to study it. If the malware detects it's being analyzed, it might refuse to execute its malicious payload, shut down entirely, or simply behave normally. This prevents security tools from properly understanding its full capabilities and generating effective signatures for detection, making it a very effective stealth mechanism for the Trojan. Moving on to the assembly option, this is a highly deceptive feature that allows the attacker to make their malicious client appear even more legitimate. Here, we can clone the information from an existing executable file, including its version details, company name, product name, and most importantly, its icon. This means that when the Trojan is running in the victim's task manager, or when they look at the file on their system, it will display the exact same icon and information as a trusted application. This makes it incredibly difficult for a user to distinguish the malicious process from a genuine one, as it visually appears completely safe. For this demonstration, I'm going to use the Proton VPN executable from where I installed the software to clone its information. For maximum stealth in a real-world scenario, I highly recommend using an application that comes pre-installed with Windows, such as OneDrive.exe. These system applications are generally trusted by users and are always running, making a cloned malicious process blend in almost perfectly. Finally, once all our settings are configured, the connection details, persistence options, and deceptive assembly information, the last step is to click Build. This will compile everything we've specified into our malicious client executable, ready for potential deployment. Before we hit Build, you'll notice an important option, Obfuscator. I'm definitely going to use this, and here's why it's so significant in the world of malware. Obfuscation is essentially a way of encrypting or stealthing the client's code. It intentionally makes the code incredibly difficult for humans or automated tools to read and understand. This is primarily done to make reverse engineering much harder. Security researchers and antivirus companies often reverse engineer malware to understand how it works, what it does, and how to detect it. Obfuscation severely hinders this process. The trade-off, however, is that obfuscating an executable usually makes the file size bigger. But for attackers, this slight increase in size is well worth the added privacy and stealth, as it buys them more time before their malware is fully analyzed and detected. All right, now that we've covered all the settings, it's time to actually build our client. We're going to create the executable, and for its file name, we'll use protonvpn.exe. This ensures it perfectly matches the assembly information and icon we cloned earlier, making it even more convincing. And for simplicity in our demonstration, we're going to build this client right into the same directory as our AsyncRAT server application. In a real-world attack, this executable would then be prepared for delivery to a victim, perhaps via a malicious email attachment, a compromised website download, or even a USB drive. Now that we have our protonvpn.exe client built and ready, we're going to take the final step in our demonstration, running it on our own PC. This is where you would typically see a real infection unfold, but please remember the strict security measures I've detailed throughout this episode. For legal and ethical reasons, I cannot and will not simulate a real attack on a separate, vulnerable system. Our goal here is purely educational, to show you the mechanics in a controlled environment so you can learn to protect yourself. Instead, our AsyncRAT server is going to find its target right here on this machine using localhost. This means we are effectively attacking ourselves. The client will attempt to connect back to the server running on the very same computer. It's a controlled loop, allowing us to observe the rat's behavior without any risk of harming other systems or engaging in illegal activity. And there it is. As soon as our protonvpn.exe client was executed, our AsyncRAT server immediately found its target after restarting the server. You can now see the new entry appearing in our server panel, indicating a successful infection on our local machine. Now that we have this connection established, we can finally explore the extensive capabilities at our disposal when a PC is compromised using AsyncRAT. This is where the true power and danger of a remote access Trojan becomes apparent. Once a client connects, AsyncRAT immediately populates its panel with valuable information about the compromised machine. This is crucial for attackers to understand their target. First, we get the process ID, or PID, of the infected machine. In our case, since we're attacking ourselves, you'll see our localhost IP 127.0.0.1 and the port 6606 through which the connection is established. Then we can see the country of the attacked machine. This helps attackers prioritize targets or understand their geographical spread. We also see the group our client process is hidden within. In our demo, that's Windows Defender helping the attacker manage their different campaigns. Further details include the operating system of the compromised machine, the timestamp when the Trojan was installed, which is vital for tracking the duration of access, and perhaps most importantly, the antivirus software installed on the attacked machine. Here, you might be glad to see Windows Defender as the detected antivirus, because while it's a default line of defense, other commercial, well-known antivirus solutions are often more potent and harder to trick, providing a much stronger challenge for rats like AsyncRAT to bypass. Now that we have a connection to our infected machine, let's dive into some of the powerful actions we can perform. One of the fundamental capabilities is the ability to send files to the target, either directly into memory or saving them to disk. Let's first talk about sending a file directly to memory. This is a highly stealthy technique. When a file is loaded into memory, it means the malicious code executes without ever being written to the hard drive. This is often referred to as fileless malware. It's incredibly useful for attackers because it leaves minimal forensic traces on the disk, making it much harder for antivirus software and security analysts to detect and analyze. Attackers might use this to run additional malicious scripts, inject code into legitimate processes, or deploy temporary tools that perform actions and then vanish, leaving no evidence behind on the disk. The other option is to send a file to disk. This is more straightforward. The malicious file is saved directly onto the victim's hard drive, just like any other file. While it leaves a footprint, it's essential for deploying persistent malware, like additional rats, ransomware, or keyloggers that need to survive reboots. Attackers would use this to establish a more permanent foothold, drop tools for data exfiltration, install backdoors for future access, or even deploy destructive malware like disk wiping software. Both methods are incredibly powerful for advancing an attack once initial access is gained, offering different advantages depending on the attacker's objective. Now, let's explore the monitoring capabilities of AsyncRAT. This is where the real espionage happens. The range of options here gives an attacker extensive visibility and control over the compromised machine. First, we have Remote Desktop. This allows the attacker to view the victim's screen in real time, just as if they were sitting directly in front of the computer. More than just viewing, they can also take full control of the mouse and keyboard, executing commands and navigating the system remotely. Then there's the keylogger. This feature silently records every single keystroke typed by the victim. Imagine the information an attacker can collect: passwords, credit card numbers, sensitive messages, search queries, anything typed on the keyboard is captured. Password recovery attempts to extract saved credentials from browsers like Chrome or Firefox, email clients, and other applications, giving attackers access to the victim's online accounts. The file manager provides full access to the victim's entire file system, allowing files to be browsed, downloaded, uploaded, deleted, or even executed remotely. The process manager gives the attacker a view of all running processes on the victim's computer, enabling them to terminate critical security software or inject malicious code into legitimate applications. Report Windows provides details about open windows and active applications, giving insight into what the user is currently doing. And finally, the webcam option. This allows the attacker to silently activate the victim's webcam, recording video or capturing images without any indication to the user. Similarly, they can often activate the microphone to listen in on conversations. For our demonstration, we'll focus on the remote desktop and the file manager. These are perhaps the most visually compelling and fun to see in action, truly illustrating the level of control an attacker can achieve. Beyond basic monitoring, AsyncRAT also packs a range of miscellaneous functionalities that allow for even deeper compromise and broader attack strategies. These are the advanced tools in an attacker's arsenal. First, the bot killer option. This feature is used by the attacker to eliminate any competing malware or botnet clients already present on the infected machine. It's about ensuring the attacker maintains exclusive control and doesn't have to share the compromised system with other malicious actors. Next, USB spread. This is a powerful propagation technique. When enabled, AsyncRAT can automatically copy itself to any USB drive connected to the infected computer. When that infected USB drive is then plugged into another machine, the malware attempts to auto-run or trick the new user into executing it, rapidly spreading the infection to new systems. The seed torrent option can leverage the infected machine to seed malicious torrent files. This can be used to distribute more malware or leverage the victim's bandwidth as part of a larger file sharing operation, further complicating the attack's origin. A highly critical feature is the remote shell. This provides the attacker with direct command line access to the infected machine. It's like opening a terminal or command prompt on the victim's computer, allowing them to execute virtually any command. Install software, manipulate system settings, or move through the network, all from afar. Then we have the DOS attack capability. This allows the attacker to use the compromised machine as part of a botnet to launch a denial of service attack against a specified target. By flooding a server or website with an overwhelming amount of traffic from multiple infected machines, the attacker can effectively take it offline, disrupting services or extorting victims. The execute.net code option offers incredible flexibility. It allows the attacker to inject and run custom .NET code snippets directly on the victim's machine. This means they're not limited to AsyncRAT's built-in features. They can develop and deploy highly specific malicious functions on the fly, tailored to their attack needs. And finally, the Files Searcher. This is used to automatically scan the victim's file system for specific file types or keywords. Attackers commonly use this to quickly locate sensitive documents, cryptocurrency wallets, or other valuable data they wish to steal, automating the process of data discovery. Beyond simply monitoring, AsyncRAT's Client Manager provides the attacker with direct control over the client installed on the attacked machine. This allows for both ongoing management and, crucially, evasion tactics. First, we have options like close and restart the client. This gives the attacker the ability to temporarily stop and restart a malicious process. They might do this to troubleshoot an issue or simply to refresh the connection. The update option allows the attacker to push new versions of the malware to the compromised system. This is vital for maintaining access as security defenses evolve or for adding new capabilities. Show Folder simply opens the hidden directory where the client is installed on the victim's machine, giving the attacker direct access to its location. Perhaps one of the most critical options here, from an attacker's perspective, is uninstall. Imagine if the user of the attacked machine starts to become suspicious. They might notice unusual activity, a slowdown, or strange processes running in Task Manager. They might even use tools to check which ports are sending data from their machine. If the attacker senses they're about to be discovered, they can use the uninstall option to remotely remove the Trojan, wiping away crucial evidence and making it much harder for the victim to pinpoint what happened, effectively escaping detection. Beyond managing the client itself, we also have direct control over the compromised PC. Options like log off, restart, and shut down give the attacker the ability to manipulate the victim's session or even completely power down the computer. An attacker might force a log off to disrupt the user, restart the machine to clear temporary evidence, or activate new persistence mechanisms, or shut it down to prevent further investigation or access. So let's now pivot our focus to Quasar RAT. This is another incredibly well-known and widely used remote access Trojan application, often favored for its open-source nature and robust feature set. While it shares many similarities with AsyncRAT, it also has its own unique characteristics and is frequently seen in various cybercrime and even state-sponsored operations. Now, let's briefly touch upon the history of Quasar RAT, as its origins are quite interesting and tell a common story in the world of cybersecurity. Quasar RAT, originally known as XRAT 2.0, first emerged around July 2014. It was rebranded as Quasar in August 2015 with the release of VERS 1.0.0.0.0.0. What makes Quasar unique and somewhat problematic is that it was developed as an open source project, primarily written in C#. Its code was publicly available on platforms like GitHub. Initially, Quasar was promoted as a legitimate remote administration tool intended for purposes like user support or employee monitoring. However, its open source nature quickly led to its adoption by threat actors, from opportunistic cybercriminals to sophisticated state-sponsored groups. Its robust features and customizable code made it incredibly popular for cybercrime and espionage campaigns globally, adapting to various malicious needs over the years. After running Quasar RAT, you'll immediately notice its interface. While it has its own distinct design, you'll see it looks quite similar to AsyncRAT in terms of its overall layout and how it presents connected clients. The core concept of a centralized server managing multiple connections remains consistent. In the top menu, you'll find several options. The File button, for instance, in Quasar RAT, typically has only one option, to close the application. So we'll go ahead and skip past that for our demonstration, as its function is self-explanatory. Instead, we're going to dive right into the Settings button. This is where we configure Quasar RAT's behavior, set up its listening ports, and prepare it for building our client, much like we did with AsyncRAT, but with Quasar's specific options. Adjacent to the port number, you'll find the Start Listening button. This is the crucial step that activates the Quasar RAT server, telling it to open that specific port and await incoming connections from clients. When activated, the server begins actively scanning for and accepting connections from any client you've built and successfully deployed on other machines. And here's a critical point to remember. For a successful connection to be made, for your client to be reached by the server, the client executable you built must be configured to use the exact same port number that you choose and activate here in the server settings. If they don't match, the connection simply won't establish. First, enable IPv6 support. IPv6 is the newest version of the Internet Protocol, designed to replace IPv4. It offers a vastly larger address space and new features. By enabling IPv6 support, the RAT can communicate over modern networks that might be using IPv6, expanding the potential target pool and sometimes offering new ways to evade detection that are specific to IPv6 traffic. Then there's Listen to New Connections on Startup. This is a convenience feature for the attacker. When checked, the Quasar RAT server will automatically start listening for incoming client connections as soon as the application is launched, saving the attacker from manually clicking Start Listening every time they open the program. Show pop-up notification on new connection is exactly what it sounds like. When a new client successfully connects, a small notification window will pop up on the attacker's screen. This is a quick visual alert, letting the attacker know immediately that a new target has been compromised or has reconnected. Try to automatically forward the port, UPnP, UPnP stands for Universal Plug and Play, a protocol that allows devices on a network to discover each other and automatically open necessary ports on a router. Attackers enable this to simplify the process of making their RAT accessible from outside the local network. If the victim's router has UPnP enabled, the RAT can automatically configure port forwarding, bypassing the need for the attacker to manually configure the router, which is crucial for remote access. Show tooltip on client with system information. This is another convenience feature for the attacker. When enabled, hovering over a connected client in the Quasar RAT panel will display a small tooltip containing quick summary information about that compromised system, such as its operating system, uptime, or antivirus status, providing immediate context without having to dig into full details. Finally, enable NoIP.com DNS Updater. Many home internet connections use dynamic IP addresses that change periodically. This makes it hard for an attacker to maintain a consistent connection to their RAT server if they're hosting it from a dynamic IP. Services like NoIP.com provide dynamic DNS, mapping a static hostname like myevilrat.noip.biz to a changing IP address. By enabling this updater, Quasar RAT will automatically update that hostname with the server's current IP whenever it changes, ensuring the attacker can always reach their server regardless of IP fluctuations. Now that we've explored all the configuration options and built our Quasar RAT client with our desired settings, it's time to bring our server to life. We're going to come back to these settings specifically to activate the server and enable it to listen for incoming connections from our newly created client. Now, let's move into the Builder section of Quasar RAT to create our client executable. This is where we define the characteristics and stealth capabilities of the malicious file we'll deploy. We'll start with the basic settings. The very first option here is Client Tag. This serves as a client identification label. It's a way for the attacker to categorize and identify individual compromised machines within their control panel, especially when they have many victims. We're going to set our client tag to Proton VPN Updater, continuing our theme of mimicking legitimate software to blend in. This is a crucial technical feature. In the world of software, a mutex, short for mutual exclusion, is a programming object designed to ensure that only one instance of a particular program or process is running on a system at any given time. Think of it like a do not disturb sign for a specific program. Malware uses mutexes for a few reasons. Primarily, it prevents the malware from accidentally reinfecting a system that's already compromised, which could lead to instability or increase the chances of detection. It's like an animal marking its territory. You can click the Random Mutex button to generate a unique mutex name, which helps in evading signature-based detection by antivirus software that might look for common, hard-coded mutex names associated with known malware. Finally, under Basic Settings, we have Unattended Mode. Activating this is paramount for a remote access Trojan. It allows the attacker to gain full remote control of the client without any user interaction required on the victim's end. This means no pop-up prompts asking the user to approve a connection, no notifications, nothing. In a legitimate remote support tool, unattended mode is used by IT professionals to maintain servers or user workstations after hours. But in a RAT, it means persistent, silent access for the attacker, allowing them to spy, steal data, or deploy further malware whenever they wish, completely unbeknownst to the victim. Now we move to arguably the most important section of the Quasar RAT client builder, connection settings. This absolutely has to be handled carefully, as it dictates how and where your malicious client will connect back to your server. Here, you'll see a list for Connection Host. This is where we tell the client the IP address or host name of our server, the machine running Quasar RAT that will listen for connections. Below that, in the IP/hostname field, is where we'll input that address. In a real-world scenario, an attacker would typically use their public IP address assigned by their internet service provider or a dynamic DNS hostname if their IP changes. You can often find your public IP address by simply searching "What is my IP" on Google, or your local network IP by running iconfig on the command prompt if you're on Windows. However, for our demonstration and testing purposes, to ensure everything stays within our controlled environment, we're going to use the local host IP address, 127.0.0.1. This is a special IP address that always refers to this computer itself. So our client will attempt to connect back to the Quasar RAT server running on the very same machine. Next, we're going to enter the port where the connection will be listened on. As discussed in the server settings, we configured Quasar RAT to listen on its default port, 4782. It's absolutely crucial that the port number entered here in the client builder matches the port the server is listening on. If these numbers don't align, the client won't be able to find and connect to your server. Now, let's look at the installation settings. If an attacker chooses to install the client on the victim's machine, which is common for persistence, these options determine where and how stealthily the malware will reside. You have several critical choices for the installation directory. User application data. This typically points to the %app data folder, e.g., C, users, username, app data roaming, or C, users, username, app data local. This location is often used by legitimate applications for storing user-specific data. It doesn't require administrator privileges to write to, making it a common choice for malware. Program files. This refers to the standard C:"program files or C:"program files x86 directories. While it seems more legitimate, installing here generally requires administrator privileges on the victim's system, which might trigger a user account control UAC prompt, potentially alerting the user. System. This points to critical Windows system directories like C, Windows, System32, or C, Windows, Sys1064. Installing here provides deep system access, but almost always requires administrator privileges and carries a higher risk of system instability if not done carefully, making it less common for general rats. Crucially, for stealth, you can set File Attribute to Hidden or set Subdirectory Attribute to Hidden. When a file or folder is set to hidden, it means it won't appear by default in Windows File Explorer unless the user has specifically configured their system to show hidden items. This significantly reduces the chances of the victim accidentally stumbling upon the malicious files. As you configure these settings, Quasar RAT provides a handy live preview of the full installation directory path so you can see exactly where your client will end up on the target system. This helps ensure your chosen path looks as legitimate and inconspicuous as possible. And finally, the Auto Start option. This is critical for persistence. When enabled, the client is configured to automatically run every time the computer starts up or a user logs in. This ensures that even if the victim reboots their PC, the Trojan automatically reactivates, maintaining the attacker's access indefinitely without needing re-execution. Just like in AsyncRAT, Quasar RAT offers an assembly section in its builder. This is a critical feature for stealth, allowing the attacker to completely fake the identity of their malicious client. Here, you can enter fake information about your client executable to make it appear as a legitimate application. This includes fields like product name, what the software is called, e.g., Proton VPN client, description, a brief explanation of what the program does, e.g., secure and private internet access, company name, the developer of the software, e.g., Proton Technologies AG, copyright, legal copyright information, trademarks, registered trademarks associated with the product, original file name, the name of the original legitimate executable you're impersonating, e.g., protonvpn.exe. You can also specify the product version and file version. These are version numbers usually seen in the Details tab of a file's properties in Windows. Product version typically refers to the overall version of the software product, while file version might refer to the specific version of that particular executable file within a larger product. By setting these to match a legitimate application, the malware further blends in. Finally, you can upload your own assembly client icon. This is extremely effective because the victim will see the familiar and trusted icon of a legitimate program, like the Proton VPN Shield, next to the malicious executable file in their File Explorer or Task Manager, making it incredibly difficult to suspect it's malware. System information. This provides the attacker with a detailed overview of the victim's computer. This includes crucial data like the operating system version, CPU and RAM specifications, disk drive information, network adapters, logged-in users, and often even hardware serial numbers. This helps an attacker understand the target's environment, identify vulnerabilities, or plan further attacks. File Manager. Just like in AsyncRAT, this is a core feature, offering full control over the victim's file system. An attacker can browse directories, download sensitive files, upload additional malware or tools, rename, delete, or even execute files remotely. This is the primary tool for data exfiltration and dropping new payloads. Startup Manager. This feature allows the attacker to view, add, modify, or remove programs that automatically launch when the victim's computer starts up or when a user logs in. It's a key tool for maintaining persistence, ensuring the RAT or other malicious software runs after reboots, even if the user attempts to close it. Task Manager. Similar to Windows' built-in Task Manager, this gives the attacker a view of all running processes on the victim's machine. They can see process names, PIDs, and resource usage. More importantly, they can remotely terminate processes, which can be used to stop antivirus software, kill legitimate applications, or halt security tools the victim might be running. Remote Shell. This provides command line access to the compromised system. It's essentially a remote terminal where the attacker can type and execute arbitrary commands as if they were sitting directly in front of the victim's computer. This offers immense flexibility for advanced actions, scripting, and interacting directly with the operating system. TCP connections. This allows the attacker to view all active TCP network connections on the victim's machine. This is crucial for identifying outgoing connections that might indicate data exfiltration, other malware communicating, or potential backdoors. It helps in mapping the victim's network activity. Reverse proxy. This is a sophisticated networking feature. It allows the attacker to route their internet traffic through the compromised machine, essentially using the victim's IP address as a proxy. This is used to mask the attacker's true IP, access internal networks of the victim's organization, or bypass firewalls by making outbound connections appear to originate from a trusted internal source. Remote execute. This capability lets the attacker execute files on the victim's system. It typically offers two sub-options. Local file. Execute a file that is already present on the victim's disk. Web file download, and then execute a file directly from a URL, often used to fetch additional payloads or tools from an attacker's server without prior manual transfer. Actions shutdown, restart, standby. These are straightforward commands that give the attacker direct control over the victim's PC power state. They can force a log off, restart the computer to facilitate persistence or clear memory, or completely shut it down to prevent further investigation or simply disrupt the user. Next, let's explore the monitoring settings. These are the features primarily focused on spying on the victim's activities. Password recovery. This function automatically attempts to extract saved passwords and credentials from various applications on the victim's machine, including web browsers, FTP clients, and email programs. This can yield a treasure trove of login details for online accounts. Keylogger. As discussed with AsyncRAT, the keylogger silently records every single keystroke made by the victim. This is invaluable for capturing typed passwords, sensitive messages, financial details, and any other data entered via the keyboard. Remote desktop. This provides real-time visual access to the victim's screen and allows for full remote control of the mouse and keyboard. It's like having direct physical access to the computer, enabling the attacker to browse, open applications, and interact with the system as if they were sitting in front of it. Send a website. This option forces the victim's default web browser to open a specific URL. While it could theoretically send someone to a support page, it's typically used to direct victims to phishing sites, malicious downloads, or ad-laden pages without their consent. Finally, we have client management, which gives the attacker direct control over the RAT client itself on the compromised machine. Elevate client permissions. This is a critical post-exploitation step. If the initial infection occurred with standard user privileges, this option attempts to gain higher privileges, often administrator-level access on the victim's machine. This allows the RAT to perform more intrusive actions like modifying system files, installing services, or disabling robust security features. Update. This allows the attacker to push a new version of the Quasar RAT client to the compromised machine. This ensures the attacker can maintain access with the latest features, patch vulnerabilities in their own malware, or adapt to new security defenses deployed by the victim. Reconnect. If the connection to the client is lost due to network issues or a temporary disruption, this option forces the client to attempt to reconnect to the server. It's a way for the attacker to re-establish control without waiting for the client's built-in reconnection logic. Disconnect. This simply severs the active connection between the server and that specific client. An attacker might use this if they are finished with a particular session or if they suspect their connection is being monitored. Uninstall. Just like in AsyncRAT, this is a crucial self-preservation mechanism for the attacker. If they suspect the victim is aware of the infection, or if forensics are underway, the attacker can remotely uninstall the Quasar RAT client from the system. This removes all traces of the malware, making it extremely difficult for security professionals to analyze the incident or determine the extent of the breach. Before we move to detection methods, I want to show you a clever trick commonly used to deliver malware like AsyncRAT. We're going to demonstrate how to hide an AsyncRAT client inside a seemingly harmless JPG image file using WinRAR's SFX option and, crucially, its ability to execute a file after extraction. We're focusing on this particular method because it doesn't require any programming experience, making it highly accessible for threat actors of all skill levels. More advanced techniques involve directly injecting code into legitimate applications or using complex packers, which can be very technical. This WinR SFX trick, however, is a fundamental and widely used social engineering tactic. Here's how it works. Preparation. You take your AsyncRAT client executable, let's call it client.exe, and a legitimate decoy JPG image file, e.g. cute_cat.jpg, creating the SFX archive. You'll open WinRAR, add both cute_cat.jpg and client.exe into a new archive. Making it self-extracting, SFX, this is key. In WinRAR, you'll select the option to Create SFX Archive. This turns the .rar archive into a self-executing .exe file. So instead of a .rar, you'll get something like image.exe. The real trick comes in the Advanced SFX options. Within this menu, under the Setup tab, there's a crucial field, Run After Extraction. Here, the attacker specifies commands that the SFX executable will run automatically after it extracts its contents to a temporary location. The attacker enters two commands on separate lines. First, cutecat.jpg, or whatever the decoy image name is, this command opens the decoy image, making the victim believe they've simply opened a picture. Second, client.exe, or the name of your AsyncRAT client. This command silently executes the malicious client in the background without any visible interaction from the victim. Additionally, attackers often use other SFX options like silent mode to suppress any extraction progress dialogues and overwrite existing files to avoid prompts. The final result is a single exe file that looks like an image. When the victim double-clicks it, a picture appears, creating a false sense of security, while the RAT client is discreetly launched in the background. Now that we've seen how these remote access Trojans can compromise and control a system, the most important question is, how do we detect them? Understanding the attacker's methods is the first step towards effective defense. We'll start with methods you can use with tools built right into Windows, then move on to more comprehensive solutions. This gives you a tiered approach to identifying suspicious activity on your machine. Our first line of defense is often the familiar Windows Task Manager. You can open it by pressing Ctrl+Shift-Escape or Ctrl-Alt-Del and selecting Task Manager. This tool provides a snapshot of everything currently running on your system. What should you look for? Unfamiliar processes. Go to the Processes tab and scan through the list. Look for anything you don't recognize. Malicious processes often have generic or misleading names, like updater.exe, svchost.exe, a legitimate Windows process, but malware often mimics it, or even something seemingly benign, like protonvpnupdater.exe, as we saw. If you see something you don't know, right-click it and choose Search Online. This will typically open a web search for the process name, which can quickly reveal if it's legitimate or malware. Malware often tries to disguise itself to blend in with legitimate system processes. For example, a RAT might name its executable svchost.exe or explorer.exe, names of critical Windows components. However, the location of the executable file is key. Right-click on a suspicious process and select Open File Location. If it's not in a standard Windows directory like C Windows System 32 or C Program Files, but rather in App Data Roaming, Temp, or a randomly named folder, that's a huge red flag. High resource usage. Malware operating in the background can consume significant CPU, memory, or network resources. Sort processes by CPU, memory, or network usage, and look for consistently high usage by an unknown process, especially when your computer is idle. Remote access Trojans must communicate with an external server to function. This means they will establish network connections. We can check these connections to spot suspicious activity. One way is using the command prompt. Type netstat ano and press Enter. This command displays all active network connections and listening ports, along with the process ID, PID, of the process that established each connection. Look for unknown established connections. Connections to unfamiliar IP addresses or domains, especially those listed as established. Suspicious listening ports. Ports that are open and listening that don't correspond to legitimate services you know are running. PIDs, once you identify a suspicious connection, note its PID and then cross-reference it with the Task Manager under the Details tab to see which process owns that connection. For a more user-friendly visual, tools like Windows Resource Monitor, which you can find in Task Manager under the Performance tab, Open Resource Monitor, or third-party firewall applications like Glasswire, can provide a graphical overview of network activity and alert you to suspicious outbound connections. While manual checks are valuable, the most robust defense against Trojans and other malware is a reputable antivirus and anti-malware solution. These tools are specifically designed to detect, quarantine, and remove malicious software. Antivirus software works in several ways. Signature-based detection, it compares files on your system against a vast database of known malware signatures. If a match is found, like the unique fingerprint of AsyncRAT or Quasar RAT, it flags it as malicious. Heuristic and behavioral analysis. This is more advanced. It monitors the behavior of programs. If a program starts doing things typical of malware, like trying to access sensitive system files, inject code into other processes, or make suspicious network connections, the antivirus can flag it, even if it's never seen that specific malware before. Real-time protection. Most good antivirus programs offer real-time protection, constantly scanning files as they are opened, downloaded, or executed. This prevents malware from even launching in the first place. Running a full system scan with your antivirus, keeping it updated, and ensuring its real-time protection is active are crucial steps. If your antivirus is suddenly disabled or won't run, that's a major red flag, as rats often try to disable security software. By combining vigilant manual checks with robust, up-to-date antivirus software, you significantly enhance your ability to detect and neutralize threats like remote access Trojans, keeping your digital life secure. In conclusion, we've dissected the inner workings of AsyncRAT and Quasar RAT, two powerful examples of remote access Trojans. We've seen their capabilities, from stealthy installation and persistence to comprehensive system control and data exfiltration. We've also explored some basic detection methods using built-in tools and the importance of antivirus software. However, it's vital to acknowledge a more advanced threat: zero-day attacks. A zero-day refers to a software vulnerability that is unknown to the software vendor or the public. This means there have been 0 days for developers to create a patch or for antivirus companies to develop a signature for it. Zero-day attack prominently. Show a padlock with a tiny hidden crack that's just been discovered. A live rat image can be seen pointing to this tiny crack, indicating its discovery of a new, unknown entry point. Highly resourced threat actors, such as state-sponsored groups or sophisticated cybercriminal organizations, actively seek out and exploit these zero-day vulnerabilities. Because the flaw is unknown, they can bypass even the most well-known and up-to-date antivirus software until the vulnerability is discovered and patched. These are the most dangerous types of attacks, often reserved for high-value targets. But for the average user, rest assured, maintaining a reputable and up-to-date antivirus solution provides a strong, fundamental layer of defense against the vast majority of known threats, including most rats. It's your primary guardian against the dangers we've discussed. The landscape of computing has changed dramatically. From the early days of MS-DOS, where computers were mostly single-tasking and internet connectivity was a rare luxury, we've evolved to modern Windows, Mac OS, and Linux systems, multitasking powerhouses where an internet connection is the default, always-on state. And now, with the pervasive reach of mobile operating systems like iOS and Android, our smartphones and tablets are constantly connected, extending our digital footprint across every aspect of our lives. This continuous connectivity, while incredibly convenient, also means we are perpetually exposed to potential attacks. The digital world is a double-edged sword, powerful but also perilous. By understanding the threats, knowing how to spot suspicious activity, and utilizing the right security tools, you empower yourself to navigate this landscape safely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into remote access Trojans. I hope this episode has shed light on the mechanics of these threats and empowered you with knowledge for better defense. And mark your calendars, because for our next month's episode, we're shifting focus to another critical aspect of cybersecurity: privacy. We'll be exploring practical strategies and tools for how to keep your privacy when you're surfing online, navigating the vast and often data-hungry digital world. Until then, stay informed, stay vigilant, and most importantly, stay safe.